Hello, dear friends. Every time someone tries to explain what people are doing here on Earth, they are not only met with opposition, but also ostracism. Opinion piece. Trapped to hunt souls. How we entered this universe. The previous universe was one of magic. Many people came here voluntarily. Some souls have escaped many times. Competition program to be the best. This would put us in conflict with the whole world. This universe was created to send out the undesirables. Entry point would be in the Orion Nebula. The entry incident ends with waves of blackness. The passage points are prepared as pawns. Incident 1 took place 4 billion years ago. Soul was overwhelmed by darkness when it entered here. Links to that download the book Self-Enlightenment by Ken Auger. Let's start. No free soul would willingly enter this universe if they knew beforehand how hard life is here. That is why the Matrix controllers devised a very ingenious honey trap to hunt souls. The vision of this trap is described in Hubbards's so-called Incident 1, which was later researched and developed by Ken Auger, aka the pilot of the Free Zone, who was an independent auditor of any cult, and wrote several books. I didn't have the opportunity to meet him personally, but I would have liked to, because I have been researching this subject for half my life. Ken Auger, known as the pilot, a pioneer of the Free Zone, was found drowned in the pool of his home in Los Angeles on May 29, 2007. His hands were bound with wire, and a heavy concrete weight was holding his legs. Police are still investigating with no results. The pilot, Ken Auger, played a notable role in his 1997 departure from the Church of Scientology, when he published his book Super Scio, his Reformers homepage, and his book Self-Enlightenment. All of these were published on the internet under the pseudonym The Pilot. Free Zone. The Free Zone comprises a variety of unaffiliated independent groups and individuals who practice auditing techniques. The term is now commonly applied to all groups of independent Scientologists. A basic belief of this school is that the human being is an immortal soul, trapped in a body of flesh on planet Earth. A November 2004 press release issued by the International Free Zone Association quoted a paragraph written by Hubbard, in quotes, "Before you go, whisper this to your children and their children. The work was free. Keep it that way." I suspect that the Church completely failed to predict the effect that the new media would have on its monopoly and ability to suppress independent thought and communication. It should be noted that at the time the business was unaware of the danger of the Internet to its monopoly, and its members were able to communicate over the Internet through sites that made them anonymous. The Incident 1 of entry into the physical universe took place 4 billion years ago, in which an unsuspecting soul was subjected to a loud snap, followed by a flood of luminescence. After a strong series of clicks, the soul was overwhelmed by darkness. The incident is described in Operating Satan Level 3, OD3, written in 1967. This incident is one of the most important events a being undergoes in his timeline. This is described as the implant that opens the gateway to the physical universe, separating souls from their natural and divine static state, in which we natural philosophers or alchemists try to recover. An implant is a form of insertion of thoughts, similar to a trauma, but done deliberately and with bad intentions. It is a deliberate installation of fixed ideas which go against the survival of the soul. Soul programming. It's very important to know the entry point to a universe because it undermines the game that takes place in this physical world. The universe prior to this material was a universe of magic, much like the fantasy and horror stories that are so popular. When you first enter this universe, you are thrust into the program of the competition to be the best. The current local entry point is the so-called Horsehead of the Orion Nebula, but there are several entry points. The Horsehead Nebula is a cool dark gas cloud located about 1,500 light-years from Earth, south of the left end of Orion's belt. It is part of the Orion molecular cloud complex and measures approximately 3.5 light-years across. This dark nebula is visible by contrast. Because of its shape, it is the most familiar of the absorption nebulae. The reddish color of the emission nebula originates from the recombination of electrons with the protons of hydrogen atoms. The brightest star located to the left of the nebula is the popular Alnitak in Orion's belt. This universe was originally made as a place to get rid of undesirables, including not only criminals and malcontents, but also prisoners of war and other defeated components. In the end, things became so interesting down here that the magical universe decayed so much that many people also came here voluntarily and few remain behind. Some souls have been brought here and have escaped many times, so entry into this universe has occurred many times, but the oldest is the best to observe. The passage points in this universe are set up like pools into which one is pulled as a spirit. There is a spiral of 64 columns with several statues on top of them revolving around the pond. It resembles the pond in Washington, D.C. in front of the obelisk. This can start because you are sentenced in a trial of taking to the beginning of the spiral, or you can enter it at will. One then spins around the spiral, being pulled by the energy. Once in the pool, all things become heavy and occluded, and it seems as if you are somewhere else. All very attractive. It's a very strong aesthetic that is presented to you to make you interested and pull you into the current universe. At the end, you come to a set of golden bells and hear the goal, "Be free," in quotes, as you pass through them. The next goal is "Be responsible," in quotes, and you pass through a set of golden books or tablets of the law. This programming continues through a series of goals. Be godlike, be free, be responsible, be creative, be important, be competent, be famous, be perceptive, be energetic, be meticulous, be successful, be right, be popular, be skillful, be wise, be beautiful, be productive, be powerful, be holy, be intelligent, be strong, be cunning, be brave, be rich, be independent, be good, be enterprising, be orderly, be different, be respected, be happy, be greedy, be sensual, be dominant, be tough, and be resilient. The final object with the goal to be resistant is a pyramid, the famous Illuminati Pyramid. You go through the inside of it and come to another landscape that is on a stage surrounded by angels, demons, and other assorted things, but all very aesthetic, complex, and very interesting to look at. Staging. Everything has the atmosphere of being a public spectacle. There are cherubs blowing trumpets and blasting sounds, while various characters appear on stage and recite verses to attract your attention. The show starts with the verse, "Only one will survive," in quotes. Then they tell you, to be that one who survives, you must be superior to all others, in quotes. Then the crowd dissolves, everything quiets down, and the first character is revealed. He is supposed to be God, who appears as an old and bearded man in a white robe. But he is only an actor in a mysterious role, because there is no real feeling of divinity in the figure. The supposed God then tells you the following sentences in quotation marks. First, to be like God, you have to resolve the opposition of stubborn people by resisting. Second, to be godlike, you have to be superior to everyone else. Third, to be like God, one must suffer the oppression of free beings. He comes out from your left, and the supposed free being comes on a stage from the right and says, first, to be free, one must resolve the opposition of beings who are like God. Second, to be free, one must be superior to all others. Third, to be free, one must suffer the oppression of responsible beings. He exits from your left, and the supposed responsible being exits the stage from the right, looking to each side as before. First, to be responsible, one must resolve the opposition of free beings. Second, to be responsible, you have to be superior to all others. Third, to be responsible, one must suffer the oppression of creative beings. This continues the same pattern for the whole series of goals mentioned above. The last one is, first, to be resilient, one must resolve the opposition of tenacious beings. Second, to be resilient, one must be superior to all others. Third, to be resilient, one must suffer the oppression of godlike beings. This brings the whole pattern full circle, with being godlike opposed to resisting. The incident ends with waves of blackness. Then you find yourself in the present universe because you have taken the bait and fallen into the trap. Conflict. This sells you the idea that the game of this universe is to be superior to any other, and puts you in a position of being in conflict with everyone else. Of course, if you are fighting everyone, you are bound to lose sooner or later, so you cannot maintain the position of being godlike, but instead sink through the whole cycle of goals, ultimately swinging backwards in the circle from resisting to a lesser version of being godlike, in an infinite downward spiral. To get out of this trap, you have to stop striving for superiority. The falsehood is that only one will survive. This idea drives to games of maximum violence and destruction. This is the reason why we fought so much, and it was nothing but in-programmed deception, presented with a lot of aesthetics. To get out of this programming, you have to stop fighting for superiority, because it was all a deception from the beginning. Incident 1 occurs at the beginning of time, but this is only within your small universe of recorded scenes. Before that, you were in the magic universe, and after that, you are in this collision, and these points have specific dates with each of these two universes. Probably this happened many times at different times in your existence, as you jumped from the material universe to the magical universe and vice versa. This incident goes a long way to explain the condition of the game that most of us have in this physical universe. It is enough to observe this incident to dispel some burden of the many subsequent difficulties you may have had in this material universe, because knowledge liberates. The stimulation will be obvious to the human being who walks through it, although reading or listening to it also produces liberation. Escape. If you escape from this material universe, you might encounter one of the entry points as described by Ken Auger, but you might happen to appear in one of the sequences described by him, and you might be propelled back into this physical universe. If someone escapes from this material universe without a sufficiently clean lower bridge, it would be easy to reimplant them due to the inherent mass carried by the spirit itself. Conversely, if the soul is light, in baggage, and sufficiently cleansed of negative charge, nothing could affect it. Consider that in an out-of-body state, the transfer to the Orion zone could be less than the time it takes to blink your eyes, and that there are more points of entry. Consider that a safe exit from this universe would be easier and safer when you span 4 or 5 universes simultaneously, which we can do because we are multidimensional beings. This wouldn't stop you at any entry point to any of them. The trial. The visions are usually much more complex than what I have related in this summary, but I want to highlight one that has struck me powerfully. The vision of the judgment of souls that resembles Kafka's judgment. This can start with you being sentenced in a trial and taken to the beginning of the spiral, or you can voluntarily enter the physical universe. When you regain consciousness, you find yourself in a courtroom where you feel you are being judged, which resembles the inside of a large cathedral, but is very dark. The lighting is quite dim, and the size of the courtroom is so huge that you can't even see the entire courtroom. Not only are the pews gigantic, but you realize it is as if you are shrinking in size, like Mr. Bean watching a horror movie. The perception of your body is as if you are turning into a cockroach and amoeba, and the feeling you get is that you have done something terrible and that you are going to be severely punished. Your attention is drawn to the courtroom table, and there is a judge with an old man's countenance and a big beard, who, with a not very severe but accusatory look, conveys the thought that you have done something so terrible that your memory is going to be erased, and that you are going to be re-educated so that it will not happen again. There is no anger, and it shows great respect for you. Perhaps you have done something so terrible that you couldn't live with that memory, and that it would be better to erase your memory so that you would be a new being. Moments later, you see yourself again with a young body next to a gigantic column on the top of a staircase of cyclopean proportions that belongs to a building. You step outside and look at the building, which is in the style of a Greek temple, like the Parthenon in Athens. You feel a tremendous sense of loss and of having been cast out and dismissed with indifference. The temple floats in space in a cosmic haze, with the universe in the background. That is all. Now, breaking news. Soros funnels millions to an anti-police activist. Records filed with the Federal Election Commission and obtained by the Washington Free Beacon in July revealed that billionaire George Soros provided $1 million to the Color of Change organization, which backs the defense of the police movement. Intellectuals reject the inclusion of Mario Vargas Llosa to the French Academy. A group of intellectuals repudiated on Thursday the appointment of Peruvian writer and Nobel Prize for Literature Mario Vargas Llosa, a new member of the French Academy, the body that regulates the use of his language and which is one of the most important cultural institutions in France. The last indigenous people of the Amazon, Tamandua and Baita, are nephew and uncle. They have survived decades of attacks by land invaders in which many members of their indigenous tribe, the Piricura, in Mato Grosso, a Brazilian state, symbolic of agribusiness expansion, are believed to have perished. Chinese scientists developed Hypersonic Engine, whose design was abandoned by NASA 2 decades ago. A team of researchers from the Nanjing University of Aeronautics and Astronautics, China, developed and tested the prototype Hypersonic Engine for aircraft based on a design proposed 2 decades ago by Ming Han Tang, then chief engineer of NASA's hypersonic program. The Ukraine standoff. Ukraine is a buffer state that has always been stuck between Russia and the West. Geography never provided Ukraine with the opportunity to remain neutral, so its political position and stability have always been fragile. Ukraine was intended to serve as a check on Russian power, but Kiev was soon deemed too weak. Soon after, the idea arose to westernize Ukraine, contributing to its development as a stable democratic state. But it turns out that Ukraine didn't want to westernize. Its linguistic, ethnic and religious diversity forces it to vacillate between East and West. Instead of choosing between a secure but limited Western status or simply being an appendage of Russia, post-Soviet Ukraine could have followed the path taken by Canada or Switzerland. Unfortunately for Ukraine, it was neither particularly powerful nor influential, nor is its geographic location suitable for the kind of autonomy enjoyed by Canada and Switzerland. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.